I often strive to do these songs justice thematically. With the Beatles song Because, it would be inappropriate to make an exaggerated upbeat video, as it's not the feeling intended by the composers of this piece. So, if you'll allow it, let's take a gentle approach to this melodiously peaceful song, as I use mainly quotes to help us understand the story of Because. Did you know that Yoko's trained as a classical musician? In college, she majored in classical composition. Yoko was playing some music one day. I don't know whether it was Beethoven or something, and I said, "Give me those chords." It was Moonlight Sonata. I said, "Can you play those chords backwards?" And wrote Because around them. The lyrics speak for themselves. They're clear, no bullshit, no imagery. No obscure references. Because the world is round, it turns me on. Because the world is round. Because the wind is high, it blows my mind. Because the wind is high. Love is old. Love is new. Love is all. Love is you. Because the sky is blue, it makes me cry. Because the sky is blue. Simple, effective, meaningful lyrics like these from the most celebrated rock and roll band ever. To me, it is reminiscent of something ancient. This kind of auditory art releases us from burden for a moment to dwell on something natural for a moment. After all, where does art come from if not from the desire to speak or to show, to tell, something we can't express with just our words or even a look? Coupled with a reversing of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the song entrances its listeners. I know, I'm quite flowery. I don't mind being flowery. Not for this song. Paul McCartney credits Yoko for inspiring these daydreaming lyrics. He says, "I wouldn't mind betting Yoko was in on the writing of that. It's rather her kind of writing. Wind, sky, and earth are reoccurring." George Harrison remarks how he adored this song, saying, "You can't deny it. I think it's possibly my favorite one on the album. The lyrics are so simple. The harmony was pretty difficult to sing. We had to really learn it. But I think that's one of the tunes that will impress most people. The harmonies in Because are truly what makes it sing, not simply because it is difficult, but because of the twists and turns it takes throughout the piece, as if telling a story in its own right." And as we know, the Beatles at the time never knew how to read or write music. John also asked for guidance from someone who could, George Martin. What's the alternative to thirds and fifths, as they're the only ones I know? And he could play them on the piano and we'd say, "Oh, we'll have that one." So I couldn't tell you what they are. I just know it's harmony. That's the kind of honesty you can only get from a collaborative artist. But recording it was a whole other procedure. Jeff Emmerich recalls, "It was mid-afternoon, but the lights in Studio 2 were dimmed way down low for atmosphere. The four Beatles, Ringo was there too, providing moral support, were gathered in a semicircle. The sparse backing track played softly in their headphones. Paul was making hand gestures, conducting the others. George Martin took his place next to me in the control room, listening intently. Yoko was up there with us too, but she never said a word the entire afternoon. John, Paul, and George Harrison each had his own mic, but they were all recorded on a single track, so I was focused on doing the balance. The three Beatles sang Because over and over again that afternoon. They probably did each pass 20 or 30 times. Even John was unusually patient that day, though he rebuked Paul once or twice, at one point snapping, "Jesus Christ, give me a break already. I wish I hadn't written the bloody thing." Even the backing track was a focused endeavor, as George Martin took it upon himself to play that iconic harpsichord for the song. George Martin says, "John playing a riff on guitar, me duplicating every note on an electronic harpsichord, and Paul playing bass. Each note between the guitar and harpsichord had to be exactly together. And I'm not the world's greatest player in terms of timing. I would make more mistakes than John did. And even though Ringo's voice isn't heard on the record, even though his drumming wasn't heard either, I assure you he is there, in a different way. Ringo is gifted with the ability to be nearly a human metronome. Ask any drummer. It's like having perfect pitch for a singer. You either have it or you don't. And on the backing for recording reference purposes and keeping the rest of the instruments in time, Ringo was the backbone of the song even though you can't hear him. And together, all together, they created a song that even the most picky Beatles fans seem to treasure. And this quote by Jeff Emmerich helps me understand why their voices and instruments sounded so haunting and longing, Jeff says. That day, I saw the 4 Beatles at their finest. There was 100% concentration from all of them, even Ringo, sitting quietly with his eyes closed, silently urging his bandmates onto their best performance, all working in tandem to get the vocal nailed, spot on. It was a stark example of the kind of teamwork that had been so sorely lacking for years. It's tempting to imagine what the Beatles might have been able to accomplish if they could only have captured and sustained that spirit just a little longer. This song is one of my inspirations as a songwriter, so much so that if you manage to get to the last song of my album, Mr. Mortimer, there's a secret track a minute after it ends. That is my homage to Because. If you enjoy these videos and want to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. My videos will always be free, and this is a great way to help me make them better for you. Check out my debut album, The HollyHobs, on Spotify and Apple Music, and click the like button, subscribe, and notification bell because that is the best way to get notified when a new video is released. See you next time.